Let me tell you a little something about myself. I've been on Godzilla movies since I was 4 years old, not even exaggerating. My brother and I grew up with it. I still remember one Christmas where we each got our own copies of Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster in our stockings on VHS. The fact that I remember something from that long ago is a testament to the impact it's had on me. Godzilla is probably my favorite movie franchise ever. However, it's not without its flaws. The plots are typically paper thin, the characters suck ass, and the special effects budget probably comes from some kid's piggy bank. When I first saw trailers for Pacific Rim, I instantly assumed it was going to suck. See that quote-unquote Godzilla abomination with Matthew Broderick? If they'd at least changed the name to something else, it would have been a decent movie. Come on, that ain't Godzilla. But as release date grew near, my stance became a more neutral one. When premiere night finally rolled around, I had no expectations, either positive or negative. And holy shit was I surprised. It's a great thing that Guillermo del Toro is such a giant weeaboo, or else this movie would have sucked. It obviously draws inspiration from kaiju movies and anime, and maybe some other sources here in the West as well. One of the main characters is Japanese, there's some gratuitous Japanese scattered in there, and there are a couple of scenes that take place in Japan. Now, I have to get this out of the way. People saying that this rips off Anime X or Movie Y need to shut the fuck up. There are no elements in this movie that you can really point at and say, that is clearly from Z. It mixes in elements from tons of places, primarily various kaiju movies and assorted mecha anime. People say it's a ripoff of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Here are the facts. All it has in common with NGE is that the pilots neurally link with their Jaegers, that kaiju come one at a time in a Monster of the Week format like angels, and that man is on the verge of extinction. None of these things can be linked to Evangelion in any direct way, not even the first one, since so many other mecha anime have ripped off NGE by now. Del Toro has gone on the record to state that he did his best to make his own thing, and kept from directly referencing other sources, and it definitely shows. Let's get the stuff that doesn't matter as much out of the way first. The writing. The writing is somewhat above average. It's certainly not bad, but it's not great either. The tone has a perfect mix of seriousness, comedy, and a little camp for good measure. There was no tonal dissonance. There was enough seriousness to make you care about what was going on, but enough light-hearted scenes to make it not too serious. The premise is pretty basic, but the story actually plays out far better than you'd expect. The characters are pretty average as far as movies go, but in the realm of kaiju movies, they're motherfucking amazing. In kaiju movies, characters are pretty much always ass. People are only there for two reasons: to deliver exposition and to remind you that there are actually people in this world, and I guess also to give a sense of size perspective for the monsters. That's not the case here. Granted, there are a few cliche and over-the-top characters, but they don't really hurt the movie too much. They add a little element of camp and lend some tactful comedy. But there are two characters, Mako and Pentecost, who are pretty solid, and they actually make you feel for the characters a couple of times. The only Godzilla movie I can honestly say had good characters was GMK. The main dude is alright, he gets the job done. Charlie Hunnam does a good job with his character. He's also hot, no homo. Now that I'm on the subject of actors, there are only 3 actors who are really known: Idris Elba, Charlie Day, and Ron Perlman. They did great, but the other actors were good too. The one who stood out the most is Rinko Kikuchi, who's actually a native of Japan, speaks perfect Japanese gratuitously for the weeaboos, and has an accent to match. And she's hot. But anyways, her acting is really quite good. As a whole, this means that the acting is Oscar-worthy among kaiju movies, because acting in kaiju movies is for the most part campy and bad. Now, onto what really matters in a movie like this: the fighting. Holy shit is the action incredible. Not only is it well choreographed and enthralling, but the special effects are amazing. The problem with kaiju movies as a genre is that its main pull is the battles, but they rarely have adequate special effects to make the action great. The 2 greatest kaiju movies ever made, GMK and Gamera 3 Revenge of Iris, had budgets of $12 million and $7 million respectively. GMK, while a great movie regardless, had pretty lackluster special effects. Revenge of Iris had pretty fucking great special effects, but still had moments where it looked plain bad. Pacific Rim actually had a budget that a movie like this requires: $180 million. Man, does this movie look and feel impressive. And massive. The sense of scale in this movie is perfect. Kaiju is the movie genre that probably requires suspension of disbelief the most. There are some moments in the fights where you'll probably be like, why the hell didn't they do that earlier? And that's because the fights would end in 10 seconds if they did. The action has enough variation to keep you excited, and the kaiju themselves feel very imposing and threatening. There's a lot of just plain cool shit to drool over as well. However, as I feared from the trailers, the Jaegers overused punching as a combat technique. It didn't help that it hardly did anything to the kaiju anyways. Another problem that I'll point out, without spoiling anything, is that some of the Jaegers/kaiju introduced get a disappointingly small amount of screen time. But, The Jaeger designs are pretty cool and unique themselves as well. Del Toro put a lot of effort into making them his own creations, and the kaiju all have very unique designs themselves. However, the music could have been better. Don't get me wrong, it was solid and did the job. There were a couple of tracks that I'd call good, and one that I'd even call amazing, but add a little extra oomph to the rest of them and woo, would it have added a lot to the movie. See Evangelion 2.0 for a mecha that has astounding music that causes goosebumps. Oh, and I forgot to mention, it clocks in at 2 hours and 11 minutes, so it's nice and long, and at no point does it feel like it's dragging either. There's lots of engaging content to go around, a fun romp from beginning to end. Oh, pro tip, there is a little scene after the credits, by the way, so stick around for that. If you like kaiju movies, Godzilla, Gamera, Ultraman, whatever, you'll love Pacific Rim. If you liked Power Rangers as a kid and want to see one that's targeted at older people, you'll love Pacific Rim. If you like anime, mecha particularly, you'll love Pacific Rim. If you liked Transformers, you'll love Pacific Rim. If you hated Transformers, you'll probably love this movie anyway. It doesn't have any of the problems that Transformers movies have. They don't have shitty ass characters. They don't parade a half-naked woman around in front of you like a piece of meat. There isn't an ounce of fan service in this movie. They don't have lowbrow shit tier humor, and you can actually see what the fuck's going on during the action scenes. The camera isn't zoomed in on Optimus Prime's crotch or whatever, and it isn't fucking shaking the entire time like the cameraman is suffering from an epileptic seizure. The camera is actually zoomed out so you can see what's happening. If you're a bandwagoner, Jeremy Jans, Matt and Wooly from Two Best Friends Play, Angry Joe, and even Red Letter Media recommended this movie hard. Hideo Kojima, the man behind Metal Gear Solid, even went so far as to say that it's un-Japanese not to watch this movie. Let me tell you another little something about myself. I hardly ever go see movies in theaters. I'm just too fucking lazy. I'd rather wait till they come out on DVD and rent them from Redbox or something. I don't think I saw a single movie in theaters during the school year last year, but Pacific Rim had one thing going for it that other movies didn't. It was a kaiju movie. I saw Pacific Rim for the third time yesterday. The third time. Not once, not twice, 3 times. I've never seen a movie in theaters more than once. Ever. I saw it release night in IMAX, and I highly recommend you watch it in IMAX, or maybe 3D, just for the experience. It's actually quite great for this movie. However, I saw it the second time in IMAX as well, and when it was over, I couldn't figure out why my enjoyment was so much less, until I saw it the third time in regular 2D, where I enjoyed it significantly more than the second. Out of 10, my enjoyment for each showing went like this. Start at 10, dropping down to 6, then back up to 8. I'm convinced that this is because the novelty of IMAX wore off after the first time. The rain and water do kind of muddle your view a little. Still, I recommend seeing it in IMAX, and again in regular 2D. My final, strictly subjective kaiju anime weeaboo fanboy score for Pacific Rim is a 9 out of 10. Pacific Rim is a fucking amazing movie. The action is great, the special effects are great, the mecha and monsters are great, the characters are solid. Fuck. I love Pacific Rim. The movie knew what it was trying to be and handled itself astonishingly well. I can't emphasize how important this movie is. Hollywood has been creatively bankrupt for years, and puts out so much shit each year that all the landfills in the world couldn't hold it. Yet those messes of light and sound that try to pass themselves off as movies still make retarded quantities of money. Del Toro took a huge risk by making a movie with a different concept, but it's clear he put a ton of effort into it. It's a very well directed and put together movie. The way it's shot, framed, edited, and the level of detail are amazing. Read some of the trivia about the movie. Visual effects supervisor John Knoll and Guillermo del Toro spent several weeks discussing the physics of the giant characters, and went into very specific detail, such as how the air displacement from a Jaeger moving between skyscrapers would shake the building's windows. It's clear that the guy cares about what he's making, not like that lazy piece of shit cash grab Grown Ups 2 that's somehow beating Pacific Rim in the box office. It's unfortunate though, because the advertising for the film focused almost exclusively on the robot on monster action, which is the main draw of the movie, but there should have been some attention given to the characters as well to draw in a more general audience. With its advertising scheme, most of the people who go see it are just nerds. Nothing wrong with being a nerd, but making a movie with a $180 million budget and not having some form of advertising to draw in more general viewers is begging for disaster. Oh, here's another thing. In case you didn't know, Legendary Pictures and the staff behind Pacific Rim are making a new Godzilla reboot movie slated for May 16th of 2014. When I first heard of that movie, I had the same reaction I had for Pacific Pacific Rim. I assumed the worst, but this movie is proof that there is hope for that new Godzilla movie. I'm going to throw money at Pacific Rim at every chance I can. I want this movie to do well. I've already seen it thrice, and will probably see it again sometime before it leaves theaters. And you can bet your ass I'm gonna buy the Blu-ray when it comes out. Or 5. However many it takes to get a Pacific Rim 2. I want more Pacific Rim. A sequel is kind of out of the question, but a prequel would definitely be awesome. Why are you still here? Go see Pacific Rim! Right now! It is your duty as the anime fans and weeaboo fucks you are.